Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the MSMF Wealth Management Client Podcast for July of 2024. As usual, I'm joined by Cody Redding and Jay Peters. Gentlemen.
What's up?
Good afternoon.
What's up?
Nothing's up at all.
There's
Nothing to talk about.
There's a lot going on around us today, guys. Interesting times. Very interesting times, although we're in a playoff spot with the Cardinals right now.
Wild card.
Temporarily.
Still counts.
Oop, I said it. Well, let's go beyond that a little bit. The world around us is pretty interesting today. Not quite sure what to make of it. What do you make of it, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, there's first of my generation, I guess, assassination attempts.
Yep.
So political turmoil, I guess you would say.
Slightly.
We get the standing president is not going to run now, so I've never seen any of these types of things happen, so these are first for me.
They seemingly happened relatively quickly, Jay.
Yes, all within
a
like
week.
10 days, it feels like, too. Yeah.
Almost
So-
like they were planned, but that's another podcast. I don't have my tinfoil hat. Okay, so I do believe, though, it does create some tension, some concern with our clients. And I think probably today is a great opportunity for us to focus on what we can't control versus what we can control. Because we can kind of get sideways in our decision making when things like this are going on around the world around us. And they do, in very fair terms, can create a lot of concern for some folks. But let's talk today, let's talk first about specifically what is outside of our control that a lot of times our clients will focus on, and we got to kind of rein them back in. Cody, give me a couple things that are outside our control.
Just a couple, huh?
Well, again, there's a lot of rabbit holes we can go down here, but let's just keep it top level.
Yeah, I mean, things that we certainly see that can affect people's emotional response, right? I'd say news would be number one. So it doesn't matter what type of news it is. It's, we live in a world where we read something, and of course they like to use always doomsday type scenarios, which then leads down the rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, are we going to have a market crash or how will this affect my portfolio?
Right.
And certainly more than not, I would have to say that it usually doesn't have any effect on what you think it might.
Right.
Just like, a lot of people think elections have an impact on overall market return. Well, there's a lot of data out there that doesn't support that.
Correct.
Right. Obviously politics, that is absolutely out of our control.
There's an election this year, right?
There is an election this year.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. Who's going to be running? Well, apparently that can change a lot. So
Rapidly.
we have no idea. But politics, the elections, as much as we want to think that it actually has an impact on what the market's going to do, sure, we can get knee-jerk reactions out of it. But like we like to just call it noise, right? So those things out of our control, we put a strategy in place, and those outside factors might have a little bit of an impact on it, but it's certainly something that we can't really prepare for.
Absolutely.
And then at the end of the day, we don't control the markets. I mean, the markets are going to go up and down in disregard of what we think will happen, right? So, and those are three things that we really, really want to have control over, but we're just never going to have it.
Well said.
Yeah.
Jay, what else don't we control?
Yeah, so to keep piggybacking on more things that we look at all the time anyway, what about the economy? What about what's going on with the job market? What's going on with inflation, right? All these things are things that really affect us, but you really can't control over it. Kind of like what you were saying earlier, you can prepare, and you can have strategy of how to mitigate some of that, but we have no control over it, right? Just do the best we can. And then kind of related to that, and it's been on a lot of our conversations recently, the last couple of years, if I zoom out, interest rates and the Fed. And what are they going to do with interest rates? Are they going to slow down inflation? All these things, right? Again, even they like to pretend like they're in control. Maybe not. But us, in talking about our finances, we are definitely not in control. All we can do is prepare as much as we can. And then I like this one. Mark threw in the weather. We definitely can't control that unless you're in Dubai.
Yeah, we were talking about cloud seeding, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah, just look that up on Google.
They thought they were in control. They're really not either. And then I wanted to add one to the list too. How about children? Can't really control them, huh?
You keep
second
between
that.
the guardrails. The guardrails. That's why they put the little things down the gutters at bowling alleys, just to.
Yeah.
That's a good metaphor.
Or the blocks in front of stairs, right? So, and that's kind of what we can control, right? Is trying to put boundaries and guardrails and try and mitigate some of the risks of these different things.
Yeah, that's extremely well said, right? And we're not trying to make light of all this. Laugh or cry. Our choice is always to laugh. But I think Jay and Cody, you're right. There are boundaries that we can put around these things, and particularly as it relates to our finances, there are things that we can do to kind of mitigate those risks and control it. And we're going to talk a little bit in terms of where we should be focusing our attention, and we're going to talk about both financial and actually we're going to talk a little non-financial. So I'll throw a first non-financial thing that we can control out there, and that is our behavior, right? So one of the things I know that we talk about all the time with our clients is not to make emotional knee-jerk reactions, right? So we try to enter a lot of logic into the financial decision-making process, so that we don't react to this outside noise, these outside forces, these things we can't control. And what we'll see, technically it's called a behavior gap, right? When our actions are not directly correlated to things we actually control, they're in reaction to things that are out of our control. So that would be the first thing I think that I would say before I ask you guys to get into the actual financial things that we can control, is focus your attention on these things that you guys are going to talk about and say, yes, I can control that in my world, and that's what I'm going to focus on while all this other nonsense is going on outside of it, right? So Cody, start us off. What are a couple things that our clients can control in light of all these things that you guys talked about that are outside our control?
Yeah, I would have to say, number one would be where we spend our income / savings. I can control where I spend it, when I spend it, how much I spend of it in certain areas. That piggyback on, I think Jay will hit on expenses, but those are intertwined.
Right.
And liquidity, how much do I want to have my money tied up in qualified assets to where I got to be a certain age to reach them and there's tax consequence versus cash assets versus after-tax investments. So that all those go together, you have complete control over that.
Sure.
Portfolio, how is it set up? Are there certain areas of the market maybe I don't want to take risk in? The cool thing is that we could certainly, all of us have the ability to build a portfolio totally custom to our individual client. And, is it time maybe to look at rebalancing my portfolio? We've had a really good run up in the market. It's never a bad thing to maybe shave some gains off the top or set up, all this works together. There's tax strategies that you can implement and all that, but is where I think the future is my portfolio set up to handle that, because the past is the past. It's done. We know how it reacted. What do we think is going to happen in the future?
Right.
Tax strategies, right? So there's what we do know is we know the tax rates today. We know how that's all set up. We know that they sunset back at the end of 2025. So we have 2024 and 2025 to what we think are going to be probably pretty set in place, I would have to say. And for those that don't know, really the big thing is that tax rates are going to go up a little bit when they sunset, if nothing's done. And
Trump,
then
talking about the Trump tax cut.
yeah,
Right.
basically it goes back to the Obama
Right.
tax rates. Standard deduction goes down. There's a big impact on legacy type planning where estate taxes are what you're allowed to pass on through your estate is basically cut in half. So like what we're doing a lot right now is, okay, hey, especially for people in retirement, maybe some Roth conversions make sense if you can do it, because we can get a lot through, convert to Roth paying pretty minimal taxes. So I certainly think those are probably a big topic of conversations, especially for the rest of the year, I would imagine.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, those are specific things we can control in light of the uncertainty. And I think clearly what happens in November may have an impact on the sunset provisions.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion on that, I think if a Democrat stays in the office, I really don't see much happening because a lot of the things that are going to sunset back are what they want.
Right.
I do see them going probably after the corporate tax structure because that is something that doesn't sunset back.
Right.
If Republican gets in the office, I think that the taxes most likely would probably stay like they are today. And meaning that they would extend that sunset to, a future date. So I don't see a lot of changes. I could be totally wrong.
Right.
But there is the looming debt that will have to be tackled at some point.
Absolutely. But yeah, those are three great things that we can focus our attention on in light of uncertainty around us. And instead of hand-wringing about the things we can't control, we can actually roll up our sleeves and get after it. And those three things are great. The first bite at the apple in terms of what we can take control of. Jay, I know you have a couple more. Share with us your thoughts on, again, what else can we roll our sleeves up and control in light of all this other stuff?
Yeah, very related to where Cody started. We'll talk about savings and having control of that, and where it is also your spending side of it, right? So how much are you spending? What's your cash flow look like? Do you have left over that you can save? Is there something else that's important that maybe we should be controlling the cash flow towards something in the future, near term? You're looking at retirement maybe. All these different things, you have control to an extent of where your dollars are going every single month. And then another one, this is super important, employee benefits offerings, right? So usually a lot of companies, if they redo their benefits, a lot of times you get to choose in October what your benefits for the next year are. So that's coming up. So taking a look at what do you have now, what is available, maybe they're changing offerings, and then maybe something is different in your life that maybe you need to adjust and add or take away something. Because a lot of those offerings that they do, whether it's life insurance or maybe adding an HSA or an FSA, remember those are part of your health insurance, maybe looking at some sort of disability insurance. I was just speaking with someone recently. They said, I'm healthy. Do I really need disability insurance? I said,
sure, until you're not.
I said, this is the most important time to have it. Like, you know what I mean? So just having those conversations around controlling what types of benefits do I have. And a lot of those are insurance coverages, but there's other benefits as well to be thinking about, right? And then kind of related to that, you want to do things, take care of some things when everything's up and going well. Another one would be legacy planning, right? Make those decisions and put things in place when it's not an emergency, when you have time to think about it, when you have time to talk to everybody in your family and figure out, no, this is what I want to have happen. What do I need to do to get that in place, right? So those types of things, so I'm talking about wills and power of attorneys, beneficiaries, trust if they make sense, healthy aging plans, what's going to happen with my spending for long-term care, for example. All these things, if you think about it before it's critical, then a lot of times it's a lot smoother when you get to that point.
Right. Excellent. Yeah. Long-standing stat, which I'll share with you. How old are you?
I'm 38.
Okay. So you are 6 times more likely to become disabled before you're 65 than you are to die.
6 times. Wow. So
Yeah.
which one's more important, life insurance? or
Right.
what?
So we all understand the need for life insurance. Like, do I really need disability insurance? Yeah. So LIMRA is the source of that data point. And it's been that way for a long time, and people just kind of like the forgotten risk, right? So great points, all of them. In fact, both of you guys, that's 6 solid things from a financial perspective that we can sink our teeth into and focus on to get ourselves out of the headspace of, oh my God, I can't focus, I can't control that, what are we going to do? We can't control this, right? And just for our friends at compliance, we're not CPAs, we're not attorneys, but we certainly know the drill and can get our clients all dressed up and ready to go see their attorney and can lay out tax strategies that they can talk to their CPA about. So Excellent stuff, guys. I do want to ask you about some non-financial things. And, a lot of times clients are like, wow, you guys, I didn't know we'd talk about that in here. And I've always joked, you guys have been in hundreds of my clients' meetings with me, that, we'd probably be better off with a psychology degree more so than, financial expertise, simply because financial decisions, unlike a lot of other decisions in our life, can be rooted in emotions, right? And sometimes emotions creep into financial decisions more than they probably should, okay? So, for instance, let's start with, Cody, how we can be driven to make decisions by what we kind of consume from a news perspective, et cetera. Talk to me about that.
No, I mean, yeah, that's an easy one to kind of sway you from one side or the other. Looking at news, obviously, if you're looking at one extreme side to the other, so Fox and MSNBC, you're gonna get the tune, and all that's gonna be to one side. So it's certainly good approach to reading both and then gathering what you want out of it. I think the Associated Press does a good job of trying not to be biased one side or the other. I think it's impossible to write the news and not have any sort of biasing.
Right.
So it's taking a conglomerate of that and then making your own decision on it.
Right.
And with information available in our hands 24/7 via the phone.
It can be bad.
and we're seeing it, right? I
Right.
mean, as the phone has become in popularity, look at the political divide. You got news at your fingertips, and then they generate from one article that you read, it's going to send that same tone throughout, right? So you're creating a bias unaware that you are.
Right.
I think is the big thing. And that impacts, we get it all the time. We get people that read, and all of a sudden there's a panic call, and oh my gosh, we're going to have a market crash. Well, where did you read that from, right? So, we look at things right now, the economy's good. I mean, the market will have fluctuations, but it does create panic and certainly knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah, and I would go back to something that I know you say a lot. I know Jay does too. It's like, okay, well, what's the data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To focus on the actual data, not about the opinion, right? And data typically, while it it certainly can be skewed, but normally data is going to tell us a story one way or the other, or it may be straight down the middle. Right? But it's going to only be one of three things. It's not going to be filled with great data. No, we're going to make it bad data. We're going to spin it. It's just like, what absolutely is the data, and we can draw conclusions from the data. Right?
Yeah.
Jay, I know this is more of this can be good. In a lot of cases, it can be bad from a non-financial perspective. It's certainly not a bad thing to focus on your relationships, your tribe. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I've read somewhere, I don't remember it is off the top of your head, but you are the summary of the 7 closest people you talk to, right? You're kind of the average of it. And so if you're spending a lot of time with someone who is very worrisome, well, maybe you're going to worry more about different things too, right? But that is 100% something that you have control over, is who, not 100%, you have a lot of control over as who you're hanging around, who you're being around, who you're going to for guidance around different things. Hopefully you have somebody you can go to and talk to about different things. Maybe us is a go-to for financial things, but I know I also have an uncle that I go to for advice on different financial things, right? But having that inner circle, to your point, and those relationships around who you want to be and who you want to be around is super critical and something you can kind of control.
Yeah, particularly when the world is somewhat uncertain at the moment. To be able to fall back on your crew, the people that you've propped up and have propped up you over time.
Right? Exactly.
The last thing that I would say is I would just use the terminology mental strength, right? And you said it before, Cody. It's noise. There's so much noise out there, whether you're looking at left-leaning news media or articles or right-leaning. The fact that you have to read them both to figure out where the truth is somewhere in the middle is ridiculous. Right? So the one thing that you've heard me say, Craig's heard me say, Chris has heard me say this, we use a terminology called sleep quotient, right? If you're so worried about what's going on outside the world, that your financial blueprint doesn't reflect your concerns, then we need to sit down and talk. And Cody, you kind of said it. One of the things that has been going on in the last couple of years is because interest rates have gone up so rapidly, we are now getting return on cash investments that we haven't gotten in 20 years. Mm-hmm. And because of those increase in interest rates and the market uncertainty, that's not bad. And a lot of our clients have a much higher sleep quotient because we're in short-term cash instruments, short-term treasuries that are getting guaranteed rates of return that we haven't seen in 20 or 25 years. That's a good thing, right? And if it helps our clients sleep better at night and combat a lot of this noise, well, then we're all in a much better place, right? So very clearly, there's a lot going on in the world. And like I said, we're not trying to make light of it, but laugh or cry, we're going to laugh 10 times out of 10, okay? And just a reminder about those things that we cannot control, and I think you guys did a fantastic job of what financial things can we control and what non-financial things we can control. And really kind of a good checklist for our clients during these uncertain times. It won't be uncertain forever. We've been in a lot worse situation in this country. We're going to get back to a spot I think that we're all are very comfortable with. So I think great stuff today, guys. Cody, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think going back to Jay hit on those employee benefit, I just wanted to add in, I feel like a lot of people maybe aren't aware of all the benefits that maybe their employer provides. I've seen a lot of long-term care out there that's portable that you can even move after you're done working there. And group rates are usually pretty inexpensive for that. There's a lot of people don't think about like cybersecurity type insurance that you can get through your work. That's becoming a very popular area. So I would say when you get your open enrollment, we're always happy to look through it and go through it with you and let you help you pick what you should have and what you shouldn't.
Super. Jay, final thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of this goes back to trying to manage our emotions and trying to match our behavior to what is going to help us succeed, right? And to me, the biggest way to stick to that is to have a plan. And so just a reminder that a lot of this, even though if it's out of control, if you still have a plan, it's still within our tolerance, then we'll still be good at the end of the day.
Well said. Well said. And the thing that I would close with is, we're here. We always urge everyone, don't call and say, here's what I just did. Pick up the phone and call and say, hey, what if, right? We have a ton of resources inside these four walls. We have an even larger set of resources outside these four walls. We can always get an answer to your question from one of numerous sources. So call and ask what if. And to Jay, to your point, if you're concerned about part of your blueprint, pick up the phone and call. And Cody's right too. And then you brought it up before, Jay. When open enrollment comes up, let's just make sure we're maximizing those employee benefits. So thanks for joining. Again, feel free to share this with any of your friends, colleagues, relatives. All the contact information would be the back of the podcast, the email addresses, the regular landline for some of you that still use the landline, and the texting line. So I know we can't control John Mazalak, so hopefully we're still having a conversation on a wild card spot next month. And I will never give up on the fact that I cannot control Doug Armstrong and what he does to others. So we'll chat with you guys later. Take care.